welcome back to another UE4 tutorial. Today we will be going over level and landscape design in the Unreal Engine. It's common for beginners to gravitate towards level design when they first begin a new project, as it's one of the easiest and most fun and creative aspects of creating a game. It's also a great way to get comfortable and familiar with the Unreal Engine, so we'll be going over some of the tools that you can use to create a level. So we're back at the level we created in the last video, and you might notice if you reopen the project that it doesn't open to this level immediately, and you might be confused or concerned that you lost your level. There's a way we can fix this so that the editor will open up a specific level for us. So first we're going to have to go to Edit and Edit Project Settings. So in project settings, you'll see a plethora of tabs on the left. There's lots of various things that you can select and edit, but to change the map on loadup, we'll have to go to Maps and Modes, which is under Project at the top. And here you'll see a few settings. Default game mode is the first-person character mode. There's a few options there, but this is the game mode that you will be playing on once you start playing any level automatically if you don't have a game mode placed in the level already. Another thing is editor startup map. We'll click New World, as that is the new level that we created in the last video, and also for game default map. So whenever we start up the game and whenever we start up the editor, both will automatically put us in that new world. And since we don't have a game object in this world, when we play it, we'll automatically be put in the first person blueprint character. As you can see, the level will now open on startup. And the level that we created last time has just got a flat plane in it. We could add more planes and boxes to create, maybe something like a building and such. But we'll never get true curves and true angles like we would with a real landscape. We can fix this by adding a landscape to our project. If you look at the top toolbar, there's a thing called Modes. Clicking that will give you a few options. One of those being the landscape mode, where we can specify and create a landscape. So click on it and check the landscape mode. You'll see it has an outline of a landscape. Before we create it, we can edit some of its properties, such as its size, location, the rotation, all that kind of stuff. Using the camera in the viewport, you can see it's quite a extensive space, much bigger than our 100 by 100 plane. You can change the number of grids you see here with the number of columns. You can change that to 16. You can go up significantly higher than this, but we'll use the default 8. And we can click Create World, and it will go ahead and place in a new landscape for us. Great. It has created a textureless landscape for us to play in. As you can see, it's the same dimensions and everything, and it's much bigger than that plane we had created before. Here's our starting point. Plane is below the landscape, so I'm just going to quickly change the heights a bit. Now that that's fixed, we can actually go ahead and play, and we can run around on our new landscape that we've created. But this is fairly boring. Again, no textures, no definition. There's no interesting landmarks. So now we can go over some of the tools to create and edit this landscape. So you'll notice another toolbar above the editor. It has 3 tabs: Manage, Sculpt, and Paint. The Manage tab allows you to edit, add, create some landscapes, multiple landscapes as well. The Sculpt feature allows you to directly edit some of these landscapes, and the Paint tool allows you to paint on materials to the landscape, like say maybe grass or dirt. You'll also see in the left window tool and brush settings. These allow you to edit the brush itself, as such as the size, which we'll put at 300. This affects, how big the area is when you use these sculpting tools. The brush fall off determines how quickly or how short it drops off. Of course, 0 has no drop off. And tool strength will edit how severe it is. So the first tool is Sculpt. Clicking and holding will allow you to mold the ground in the area of your brush. Increasing the strength will increase how fast or how strong the edits are. You can also hold shift while clicking down to depreciate the ground. So instead of going up, if you hold shift and click, it will go down. The second tool is the smoothing tool, which will smooth out all the rough edges from other tools when editing the terrain. So as you can see here, what used to be a sharp edge to the pit is now a smooth, gradual decline. You can do this anywhere on your landscape where you have any edges. The Flattened Tool is the third tool, but it's also kind of tricky. It will choose a spot and then conform any other elevation of the landscape to that spot. But in order to choose the spot, you have to first click somewhere else. So here I'm clicking like the flat ground that I haven't edited yet, and then I'm continuing to hold as I'm going over these holes and these mountains, and then they're conforming to that level that I specified before. When playtesting our level, you can see that we can interact with the environment. It's not just the character that can walk on these surfaces, it's also affecting the projectiles from the gun. So as you can see, we can go ahead and bounce projectiles off the ground. They'll fall into the pit. We can shoot them and they'll curve a little bit on the smoothed and curved landscape. After a certain point, we're gonna slip and fall as the elevation's too high. But our landscape is working. To go over some more of the tools that we can edit the landscape with, we can go to Noise, which will add random deviations to the landscape. So as I just click and drag without pressing any other buttons, it will randomly select either, super high, super low, or anywhere in between. The Hydro tool will simulate what lots of rain or running water will do to the environment. So as you can see here, when I go over mountains, it will kind of, slowly erode them. The erosion tool will do this, but at a significantly faster pace. I'm just gonna flatten out some of this eroded landscape and prep an area for testing of material application. Just gonna make a little pit where we can put a different material in. Cool. So moving on to paint tools, we have paint, smooth, flatten, and noise. The paint tool will allow you to apply a material to a certain area, but as you'll notice, we don't have any materials to work with, and we're going to want to load some up since our landscape is very bare. Now we're going to create our own landscape material. So we'll create a new folder for our custom materials and call it landscape materials. Opening the folder, right-clicking, and clicking material will create a new blank material for us to work in. I'm going to name this something along the lines of tutorial material. So opening this up will open up another type of editor, a material editor. You can see on the left we have a preview window where we can see what kind of material it looks like. It's currently blank, so we'll have to grab another material. We can do that by going back to the content browser and looking through all the materials that come with the first person template. So content, first person, or starter content, then textures. And we'll look for some ground textures. We'll grab ground moss, just drag it into the window, and we'll also grab concrete. We're going to be doing some fancy maneuvers such as blending in a second, but for now we're going to see what the ground looks like if we just take the ground moss and put it into the base color for this material. This will just show just the moss texture when we apply this material to the landscape. So with the landscape selected, you can search for our new texture in the details panel, and it will apply. Once it's done compiling shaders, it will show our new material. And it looks so bad that I'm going to change that out for a different material. So we'll just use ground grass instead. Again, we're going to plug it in and we're going to hit apply to apply our changes, and we can see those changes in real time. So it looks slightly better. You can see that the texture is very small, very condensed, and you can see the repetition of it quite well. We will be fixing that in a moment. But here in the editor, we have our two texture samples. We're going to search for landscape layer blend so that we can blend these two together. We're blending them together so that we can have both grass and dirt on the same landscape material. So with our layer blend, you can click on it, and in the details panel for it, add two different layers since we have both grass and ground to it. And drag both the RGB outputs into the layer blend. Now I recommend renaming these layer names to grass and dirt inside the layer blend details panel. You can name the top one grass and the bottom one dirt. And what this is going to do is allow us to blend these two textures together with any weight on either side. So if you look at the blend type, the standard is a weight blend, so we can have like 90% grass and 10% dirt, or anywhere, you know, any comparable weights to that. We can go ahead and drag off of that and put that into base color. Clicking apply again to have our edits come in real time. Now you'll see the world looks very black. You might think you've messed something up, but you haven't. We need to go into the landscape tool and create layer info. Right now it doesn't know how to blend, so we're going to tell it that we're using weight blended layers. You can make sure that you're using weight blend by going back to the layer blend and looking at the settings, but we're going to say that we are blending by weight. And we'll have to do that for the second material as well. Great, now that that's set up, we can go back to our material. Our texture wasn't scaled right, so we can fix this by making the texture repeat in a larger pattern. We can do this by adding a landscape coordinate node. So we'll search for landscape chords. Now we drag this pin into the UV input in the texture sample. We'll change the value to 6. And do the same for the second texture. So now both will repeat, but on a larger pattern. Going back into the layer blend, we can preview the weight by changing the values. As you can see, with 1:2 ratios, we get a blend between the two different textures. Let's check on our world. And now the material has been applied. So we can paint different materials on now that we have multiple layers. If we want to paint dirt on, we can select the dirt on the left and just click and drag. Give it a second to load. And you'll see we've painted on the dirt layer. Now it doesn't instantly go to all dirt. It will blend between the two based on the tool strength. So now we can just go ahead and paint some dirt on. Put on the side of the mountain. And maybe make a path from the start to the mountain and to the pit. And it's as seamless as that. We can test it out, walk along it. Looks pretty good for 2 different texture layers. And now you'll see in the reflection, or you can notice in the reflection, that there's no depth to the ground. It looks very flat and smooth. We could change this by adding each texture's corresponding roughness layer to our material. So we'll go back into the editor here. And we're going to need to grab those maps from the content browser. So we'll go back to the same folder. And we'll grab the same maps as to the textures that we have. So we'll just drag in the grass one and the gravel one. We're going to need to blend these two maps together the same way. So we'll search for landscape layer blend. And of course add 2 different layers, renaming them to their respective names, grass and dirt, and drag the RGB pins into the input of the layer blend. And we'll need landscape coordinates for the textures as well, since they will not be scaled without these. I'm just going to copy them over to make sure that we get the same numbers, so that the texture and the maps do not misalign. And we can drag the layer blend output into the roughness node on the material. Apply that. But, aha! I have tricked you yet again in this tutorial series. We're actually going to drag this into the normal pin on our material. Now that we've applied our changes, if we go ahead and play, getting down to the ground, we can see, oh yeah, there's lots and lots of detail here. You can see all the tiny rocks in the reflection. So now our ground, even though it is perfectly flat, no longer looks perfectly flat. Yeah, adds a lot of character to the ground here. There are 2 more things that we need to add to our level that we did not add to at the end of the previous video, and that is a light mass. Well, one of them is a light mass importance volume. We go ahead and place this into the level. What this volume will do is direct the engine to areas that where lighting is more crucial. So we'll make this 100 by 100 by 100, and everything in this area will be prioritized for lighting calculations. Everything outside will not be so. This will save quite a lot of performance, as not the entire scene is going to be calculated so heavily. We have one other issue to resolve, and that is the player having the ability to jump off of the landscape and fall forever. To stop them from falling forever, we're going to add a kill volume to our level. This will destroy any actor that falls off the level and into this area. So we're going to put it in the very center of the world, and then drop it down by a significant distance so that it's far below the world, say at like 5,000. Then we will make it extremely large to cover our entire map. Let's do 2,000. And when any actor, so for instance the player, were to fall off of this, they would die. And in theory, this would allow you to respawn instead of falling forever below the map. We can go ahead and test this by playing our level. Here we go. And of course, falling off the edge, we will die, and our character will be removed from the world. You can see that in the world outliner as the game is playing. Alright, well, congratulations on completing the third tutorial in this YTAC UE4 tutorial series. Be sure to tune in next time as we will be going over some more coding basics, some logic that you will need in order to construct some of your game modes, game characters, all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, continue to work on creating your levels. This is a great way to familiarize yourself with the engine. And keep in mind the due date is coming up fast, the Wednesday of next week. So good luck, and I'll see you there.